Hey, so this is a wall-supported balance progression. I'm gonna walk through it. There's, to be honest, not a lot to see in the video, so I'm gonna talk through what's happening. But the whole goal of this is to try to feel certain areas of the body working as we're on one leg, mainly the back pocket area and potentially inside the shin and foot and ankle. When we're balancing on one leg, I'm just gonna show from a front view, I want the hips to be square, so pointing in the same direction, not tilted. I don't want to be sinking out at the hip or leaning. Knee is over center of the foot. Ball of the foot and big toe are on the ground. So pretty much, if that's too many cues, we're just straight in line, kind of up and down, not tilted. And on the leg I'm standing on, everything is kind of lined up rather than twisty turny. So often, as we're progressing that, it can be painful, or there's alterations in how some of these muscles are firing. So having a bit of support is where we can start. So I'm gonna have two hands on the wall fairly firmly, little bend to the knee and the hip, and then I'm gonna balance on one leg with this support and just keep a little tension on this band. That tension just can help bring awareness to where the knee and the hip is, and maybe get a little work here. We're going to try and feel work on the back pocket of your stance leg. If you're not feeling it there, before we ditch the drill, I want you to play around with alterations to the position. Sometimes people start and they're skewed up here, so I might bring my outside, my leg that's in the air, that pocket down to the ground a little bit. Sometimes people shift their hip out to the side. If that's the case, I'm going to take the hand that's opposite the leg I'm standing on and just move it a bit out to the side. So I'm staying on my left. That's just going to draw my body over the foot that I'm standing on rather than being tilted off to the side. You can also try sending the hips back a little bit. So my shin's vertical, my knee's bent, but my butt's pushing back, my weight's a little more towards the heel. You might try something else and try to feel some work in the hip. Once we feel that, we're going to gradually decrease support. So I'm going to start by just taking one hand off the wall. Then I might go to just fingertips on the wall. So I'm taking the other hand off and just fingertips. Then I might go to no support, or I'm just kind of tapping the wall as needed. If I can't do that, I might alternate hands, because as I alternate, that just challenges my base of support a little bit. But ultimately the goal is to move away from the wall and not have changes in what's working. The most common one is if we're feeling here with support, take support away. Sometimes people feel it in their back, sometimes the front pocket area, sometimes the inside of the knee, sometimes somewhere else. And so what that means is if we have support and it feels like we want it to, and then we take away support and it changes, it tells us that as our body is trying to create stability, it's having a compensation pattern, because as I get less stable, it starts to recruit other things. And so in those cases, I find, at least at first, it's more helpful to work and progress to the more challenging or less supportive position rather than just hanging on for dear life. So I know this maybe is the most exciting exercise in the world, but if single leg exercises often don't feel good for you, if it feels unstable or shaky, or just your balance isn't as good as you want it to be, and you try working on it and it just doesn't feel right, then let's go to some support and then gradually decrease that support. I'm just going to show this with these trekking poles so you can see from the front. So I'm here and I'm just getting a little tension on the band, and then I can decrease support, go to just a finger, take it off, but throughout the whole thing I'm square. I get a little lean to the right, but I'm not really far over. I'm not kicked out in the hip, my knee's not wobbling, my knee, foot, everything's lined up. I could alternate if I needed to. And so different ways to progress this, but I want your mind involved in this one. Meaning, if you're just there and you're like, kind of zoned out a bit, we might not get what we want. We're trying to reprogram how the brain automatically coordinates movement, and that takes some cognitive effort. A lot of movement is automatic, and that's typically a good thing because it frees our brain up to do other things as we're moving around. But when we have some of these compensation patterns for some reason the brain has picked up a different way of moving, or a way of moving that maybe you've had for a long time but is no longer serving you. And so we have to engage the brain a touch to tell it to do something new that's not the automatic pattern. And I often find that balance, where things that can be wobbly, is often where the compensation patterns will really stick their head up, because the brain is just trying to do what you're asking it to, which is not fall down. So we're going to ask it to do something a little bit different, which is not fall down, but use a different set of muscles. And hey, I'm going to give you some support until you can do that consistently and reliably. So typically I'll go for 30 to 60 seconds, but if you feel it and then it kind of goes away, I often pair this with one or two other drills that kind of activate the area. Sometimes we'll do a little rolling, maybe we do a hip mobilization, and then often we do some type of drill like a side step or a butterfly or something that isolates this area, and then we try to use it when we're balancing. And so don't keep getting frustrated with this one if it doesn't feel right. Go back through maybe some of the earlier drills or change and tweak your position, because everybody's anatomy is a little different, and kind of play around with it until we can get the right activation on the stance leg. If you felt like you've given it a good go and it still doesn't feel right, then just pause it, and we'll go over it together if you're working with me, or take it to your physical therapist and talk about how balance isn't feeling quite right for you. As always, don't work into pain or discomfort.